So it's a Friday night in February, just a couple of months ago. And the new year is off to a rough start in my house. All we do is work and get ready to help my mother-in-law, Bobby, relocate from where she's been living in New York for 40 years to an assisted living facility up here in Connecticut. And for many reasons, for everyone involved, this is the right choice. But Bobby is not happy about it. She has agreed to this very grudgingly. And to tell you the truth, I mean, Andrew and I are not 100% happy about this either, because after 2 decades of higher than average intensity parenting, we have gotten both kids out of the house, and we are very happy empty nesters. Like, our life has gotten really quiet and boring and routine, and we like it that way. The kids are getting ready to move home, and Bobby's getting ready to move to Connecticut. And every day, we are adulting in the extreme. There's like calls with movers and calls with doctors and logistics and bills, and all this stuff has to get dealt with. And it's really hard. Like, we don't want to do this much adulting. We're kids. We're the kids in this relationship, but now we have to do the adults. And we leave our kids out of the mix, right? But amongst our generation in the family, emotions are running very high. And there's a lot of people fighting all the time, and nobody's really fighting about what they're actually fighting about. And Andrew and I are fighting all the time as well. And this one particular Friday night, now, in hindsight, I might have been a teensy bit reactive, but in the moment it doesn't feel that way. And I need a place to put all my emotions. So I wad them up into a ball and I throw them at my husband as hard as I can. And this fight is just a whopper. And Andrew, who has a shred more sanity left than I do, looks at me and goes like, fuck this shit, I'm out of here, I'm going to get a hero. And he heads off for Antonio's, and I calm down. Make a cocktail, I take a breath, and I call my friend Steph. Now, Steph has there are many really good things about Steph, but one of the really good things about Steph is that in a moment like this, Steph is a talker. And I call Steph, and we spend like an hour on the phone talking about anything but the move and the change that's about to happen in our lives and the fight, none of that. We're just talking about like random shit. And this goes on for like an hour until the dog has to pee. So I have my AirPods in, right? And I'm wearing my flannel pants, and it's a warm night for February. So I put on a sweater and Emily's slippers, which are like 2 sizes too big for me. And I leash up the dog and I head outside. And I'm in the yard and I'm still talking to Steph. And the yard is like, most of the snow and ice has melted because it's February, but it's warm. And we're just yapping, right? I think we're talking about like airport lounges and which airline has the best lounge, because Steph flies fancy, right? And next thing I know, I am on the ground. And it happens that fast. There's no tripping, no stumbling, no putting my hands out to break my fall. Like 1 second, I'm walking the dog and talking to Steph, and the next second, there is melted snow seeping up my bum. And I say to Steph, I just fell, and she says, are you okay? And I say, I think so, but my shoulder hurts. And she says, you need to get some ice. So I stand up, and I haven't hit my head, I know that much, but I am nauseous and I am dizzy and something's not right, and I'm holding the dog and I take like baby steps into the house, and Steph says you need to get some ice on it, and I say okay, and we get off the phone, and by the time Andrew comes in, there is a trail of clothing in the house, but not in a good way, because it leads to me on the couch where I'm curled up with a bag of ice, and the fight is forgotten at this point. We're not quite sure what needs to happen. We decide we're going to go to bed and check it out. And when we wake up in the morning, we know two things, okay? One is I'm missing an AirPod because I'm deaf in this ear. So I don't know why I still have both of them in, but I just do. And I'm missing this AirPod. It must have come out in the fall. And I'm going to need to find that because they're expensive. And the other thing we know is that my shoulder is fucked. Like, that is a medical term. I don't know what, it's got like this lump where a lump doesn't belong, and it's agonizing, and we have to go to the hospital. So we get dressed, and I put on a pair of sweats, and I put on one of Andrew's shirts, because it buttons, right? So I can kind of slide it over me, and we button up. And we decide we're gonna stop at the Good Bakery on the way to the hospital. I'm hungry, right? So we're gonna stop at the bakery and we're gonna get something to eat, also because we could be at the hospital for who knows how long, right? So before we get in the car, I walk out to the backyard amidst all the melted snow and ice, and I find my AirPod right away. It's right next to this giant tree root, which is obviously what has caused the problem. And I put the AirPod in the case, and we get in the car, and we go to the bakery before the hospital. And my shoulder, at this point, is just killing me. And I close my eyes, and I sit back in the seat, and I cross my right ankle over my left knee, and we drive, and we get to the bakery. And Andrew parks and turns off the car, and I uncross my legs, and I open my eyes, and I look down at my pants, and I say, "What's that?" And before the words are out of my mouth, I know. It's dog shit. And it is on my pants, and on my shoes, and on the floor of the car. Like, I must have stepped in some thawed turd out in the backyard looking for the AirPod, right? And I get out of the car, and at this point, the adulting is over. And I turn into a toddler, crying in the parking lot, going, "Get it off me, get it off me!" And Andrew, he does. He gets some wet paper towels, and he cleans me up, and he gets a cappuccino and a croissant, which I think is like the grown-up version of a sippy cup and some goldfish. And we get to the hospital, and they confirm that, in fact, my shoulder is fucked. I told you it's a medical term. What I actually have, it turns out you can't really break a shoulder because it's a joint, not a bone. I have something, and you got, oh, Clara, here. I have something called an acromioclavicular separation, which normally only happens to rugby players and such. So I'm very tough. They send me home in a sling the size of a canoe. And we really have a problem because this move is supposed to happen in 4 days. And the plan is Andrew's gonna go to New York and pick Bobby up, right, while I stay here and meet the movers. And I'm gonna unpack and hang up the pictures. And I can't drive in a sling the size of the canoe. And I can't unpack anything. Like, I'm useless at this point. And what are we gonna do? And it occurs to us that we have 2 grown children. And they can help. And so we send up the bat signal and call down to Florida, where they both live. And conveniently, Jonah's gonna be on spring break from college, and Emily can take a couple of days off of her job. And we fly everybody up. and they rise to the occasion magnificently. I sit on the couch directing, going, put this here, put that there, not with this arm, put this here, put that there, do this, do that. They feed me, they keep the house clean, they drive me to appointments. It's fantastic. And I'm left wondering in this moment about grown-ups and children and parents and kids. You know, when they're young, we're young, right? But then something changes. They grow up and we grow old, bones break, memories fail. And back then, they would fall and we would pick them up and kiss it all better, right? But as time goes on, if we did anything right at all back then, as this illusion of infallibility that we have all worked so hard to create crumbles from underneath us and we fall, they're there to pick us up and kiss it all better. Thank you.